Hey guys, what is cracking? It's Krakenation here, coming at you guys with the next installment of our competitive analysis series, where this time we're going to be taking a look at FLUTTER. FLUTTER is one of the new alternate forms for these Pokemon from previous gens, and this one being Form Mischievous. And guys, I want to keep it real with you. FLUTTER is an absolute monstrosity of Pokemon. This is by far of this series the most competitively threatening Pokemon that we have reviewed, and we're going to be taking a look at why today. So I am super excited, and let's go ahead and dive right in. So right off the bat, FLUTTER is a ghost type that also gains the fairy type now. Ghost fairy type is an extremely great typing because I've likened this mon to Spectre, but Spectre, if it got good coverage, and not just good coverage, but also stab coverage to hit opposing darks. Which is really impressive because now you can run Moonblast, you can run that Fairy type. You're not weak to Dark type. The Dark types that come in are super powerful Ghost typing, and as we know, as I've talked about in a lot of videos before, Ghost type is an absolutely terrific offensive type because it is universally hard to resist, and the only things that come in are Darks and Normals. And so if Dark types can't come in because you're also a Fairy type, your opponent's gonna be in a tough spot. So the FLUTTER just ends up being a monstrosity right off the bat. Photosynthesis is that ability that all these Pokemon have that boosts your highest stat under either Sun or if you're holding the booster energy. Unfortunately not the most useful ability, but for FLUTTER that does not matter. This thing is going to be claiming lives no matter what. So let's go ahead and take a look at these stats. Right off the bat, you're going to see those monstrous speed. It's an absolutely blistering speed stat at 135. You'll be able to outspeed almost anything that isn't a Scarfer, and even some slower speed Scarfers. Great special attack at 135, so those are just a fantastic combo, and a very good special defense stat at 135 for what it's worth. Obviously, your physical defense is absolutely atrocious. This thing is paper thin on the physical side with no attack to speak of either. So you can actually take a special hit or two because you are so bulky on that side, at least from your stat, but your physical defensive side is going to leave a lot to be desired, and that's going to be the main kryptonite to FLUTTER is powerful priority moves, especially Pokemon clicking things like Bullet Punch that will hit it super effectively. You will not be taking those things very well. Let's go ahead and take a look at notable moves, and this thing has a phenomenal move pool to boot. First up, you have stabs with things like Moonblast and Shadow Ball, but then you have so much to work with from there. You have great coverage, Dark Pulse, Energy Ball, Mystical Fire, Power Gem, Psyshock, Thunderbolts, Charge Beam if you wanted to get a boosting move in there, some kind of niche moves like Stored Power, like I said, Charge Beam, even gets like Thunder. It's got just a phenomenal move pool. I included Sunny Day down here at the bottom. Sunny Day is kind of cool because it does activate your photosynthesis and as well as boost your Mystical Fire if you're running that technically, so kind of worth the option, but not necessarily a move you're going to run on non-niche FLUTTER sets. It gets a Wish and Pain Split, so get some recovery options as well. Taunt, Calm Mind to help it set up. Guys, this thing has it all, and it is an absolute menace to society for sure. It just gets all the coverage it could ever want, and claims lives while it's doing it with those monstrous special attack and speed stats. Just very fast, hits hard, has all the moves it needs, really has a lot going on for it there. Taking a look at some sets, actually, sorry, my bad, I misspoke. Taking a look at some pros and cons, guys, sorry about that. First up, insane offensive power, like we talked about, 135 special attacks, that is excellent. And then it's got a unique typing that gives a great stab combination. Ghost Fairy is a terrific defensive typing, as well as an offensive typing all in one. So it gives it some great resistances, but it also gives it just the ability to hit those dark types that come in. And this stab combination is pretty much only resisted by Pyroar, which is a normal fire type. And you get Power Gem to hit that if you really want it, right? So this is basically an unresisted stab combination, which is absolutely psychotic. Like we talked about, good coverage move pool. So even if you wanted that Pyroar, you can, but it also has other tools like Mystical Fire, Power Gem, Thunderbolt. It has all the tools it needs to hit. And then you have that 135, so you have just an absolutely blistering speed stat that's really hard to take on. Now, unfortunately, it does come with some cons. Poor bulk, especially on the physical side, leaves it very vulnerable, especially to Power Gem. So its ability is not very helpful. Photosynthesis is not going to be helpful in almost any situation on your FLUTTER and it's also not very versatile. It doesn't do a whole lot of things extremely well, but to be honest, it does enough things well enough that you are not super predictable right off the bat. So I think this thing is going to be an absolute menace to society in general, and that versatility one is kind of a nitpicky one because it honestly does a few different things really well that don't necessarily lose to the same things, so you need to be careful about that if you're playing against a FLUTTER. Taking a look at some sets here, guys. First up, I got a Specs Breaker set. This set could easily also be a Scarf set if you wanted, so keep that in mind. If you want to run a Scarf set, I'd probably go Modest Nature, and if you're going a Spec set, I'd probably go Timid Nature, so keep that in mind. We're going to run that Choice Specs or Choice Scarf item and the Photosynthesis ability. Again, not the most helpful. We're definitely going to run our 2 stabs, Shadow Ball, Moonblast, and then really in the last 2 spots, it's really up to you what you want to run. You could even run Thunderbolt, which I didn't include in this list. Just basically whatever coverage your team needs, you can run in the last 2 spots very easily. There's not a whole lot of things that Flutter Mane gets besides those 2 stabs that really needs to function, honestly. So after that, it's kind of just like pick your poison. Like, let's say your opponent, the rest of your team is really beat by opposing water types. Maybe you want to run Thunderbolt, or maybe you're really afraid of that Pyro or whatever those fire types coming in. You could run Power Gem, or you're really afraid of steel types. You can run Mystical Fire. So you've got those options and those coverage opportunities that you can kind of pick and choose what you want to beat, because nothing's really ever nothing's ever switching into Moonblast or Shadow Ball well, anyways. So if you really need to just specialize your Flutter Mane to be as specified for what your team needs in those last 2 moves as possible, because you really only need those first 2 moves in most situations. Just speaking on the Scarf versus Specs thing a little bit, if you are running Scarf, you're going to be more of a cleaner, a very good cleaner, and if you're running Specs, you're going to be more of a breaker and a very good breaker. So keep in mind when you're building around those kinds of mons that you're going to need to be kind of pairing those with different options, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as far as what your best options will be to pair those with. Taking a look at another set here is a Calm Mind super set. I'm going to go leftovers to give you some recovery over time. We're going to go max HP, max speed, just to give you some survivability. You could still go max special attack, max speed. I would definitely go Timid Nature on this one, though. You want to have that speed as much as possible. Yeah, you can choose between investing in bulk here if you wanted, or you could invest in special attack and hit as hard as possible if you wanted. That's kind of up to you. I'm going to run Calm Mind. We're going to run those 2 stabs, which again are pretty much unresisted, so you really don't need much else. And then you can run Pain Split or Wish to give you some recovery, and I really like this set a lot. I think this set could catch opponents off guard. So between a Scarf set, a Spec set, and a Sweeper set, you really can specify your Flutter Mane to whatever you want it to do, and it can really do all of it quite admirably. I think this is a very, very viable set as well that I would really like to see. I think could really see some success, and if your team is in need of a sweeper, I think this set will do extremely well. Flutter Mane is an absolute monstrosity. Taking a look at just some team options, match with a relevant sweeper or breaker. So like we kind of touched on earlier, I'll go into a little more detail here. If you're running a cleaner style of Flutter Mane with the Scarf set, let's say, for example, you may want to match that with a wall breaker. But if you're running a wall breaker with the Spec set, you may want to match that with a cleaner. So whatever your Flutter Mane is doing, it's probably going to do quite a good job, and then you might want to match it with something to help it. So if you're running like Specs, you might want to run like maybe, for example, like Meowscarada to be a cleaner or something like that. Those might be some good options as well. Physical walls to come in on physical attacks that are it's one of its biggest threat is probably useful, especially like a nice steel type to come in on bullet punch users, or a nice bulky water to come in on those bullet punch users is probably a very good option. Just that's kind of its one kryptonite, right? Is those physical attacks, especially the fast ones and the priority ones. So it's really nice to be able to switch out into a physical wall in those situations. So a nice physical wall or tank or just a physically defensive pivot could be a really good option for Flutter Mane. Bulky special walls are kind of the biggest threat as well. They're not even terrific. You can run Psyshock if you wanted. Also, it does get Psyshock, which is just crazy. But in general, a really good special wall like a Chansey or a Blissey might be able to take on your attacks quite well. And like we talked about earlier, physical priority users, especially something like a Scissor, like a powerful bullet punch user, or a powerful Shadow Sneak user, those will be your biggest threats in general to Flutter Mane, just because it has that incredibly low physically defensive stat, and will get outsped by priority moves. But overall, guys, Flutter Mane is an absolute monstrosity, and you cannot go wrong using this thing on a competitively oriented team in the Paldea region. Generation 9, this thing is already getting banned in Smogon if that's the format that you play, but I wanted to make sure we talked about just quite what is making it so good, and I could very easily imagine this thing being a menace in the Ubers tier there as well. So let me know what you guys think about Flutter Mane. Are you excited to use it? What kind of sets do you want to try on it? Let me know what Pokemon you want to see next, guys, and as always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. Drop a like, give me a subscription, all that good stuff, guys. It is always extremely appreciated. Go ahead and join our Discord link down in the server in the description box below. Our Discord server is a place where we can talk about competitive Pokemon, but we also have Generation 9 draft leagues coming up that you can take part in and kind of participate in some of this stuff as well. So I'd love to see you down there. We have a great community. Definitely come and stop by. And otherwise, I will see you guys later. Krakenation out.